Excuse me, can I please talk to you for a minute?
Sure. You look kind of familiar.
Yeah, you do too. I just want to know, do you know a podcast named The Podcast Is Mine?
Oh, yeah, I know that podcast.
I just want to let you know that it's mine.
No, it's mine.
Hello, and welcome to The Podcast Is Mine. I'm Bhushan Kumar.
And I'm Sunny Grohl.
How are you, Sunny?
I'm really good, Bhushan. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. So, when the news has far too many stories to report at the same time.
It had spinning moments in 2020.
Literally, it'll be kind of the economy's going down, there's a pandemic, there's a natural disaster, there's all kinds of things
That's
going
a Tuesday.
on. Yeah, exactly. And that's just the lunchtime bulletin. That's not even the main bulletin. So today's podcast is like that. We have got so much to get through. It's action-packed. So we are going to delve. No foreplay today, I'm afraid. I'm sorry about that. I know you like it. I'm sorry.
Sensual.
Yeah, I know, but I'm going to have to reach for the Diary of a Zone put it down, thwack, and open it.
Test that out.
Yeah, exactly. And look, someone's already made notes in there.
That's just my handwriting.
It's disgusting, honestly. If you've seen hieroglyphics, well, actually not hieroglyphics. No, I don't mean. No offense to people who do hieroglyphics. No, I didn't mean hieroglyphics. But it's just basically very messy. It's
chicken scratching.
Exactly,
yes.
Or Morse code or something. Sorry if I've offended you if you like
Or
Morse code. Exactly. Inspector Morse.
Mr. Morse
Exactly.
is telling his grave.
So let's see what the first note written in the Diary of a Zone Ho is that The Podcast Is Mine launched.
Yay! Thank you, everyone.
So yes, thank you so much to everybody who's listening right now. Anybody who has listened, and we just love all the messages of love and
so
support.
much appreciation.
It's been so wonderful to see, isn't it? And thank you so much, because we are a small podcast and we're trying something new, and we are so grateful to everybody who is just listening, and all of you lovely people who've rated, reviewed, subscribed, and followed us on the socials and interacted with us.
All three of you, we love you.
We love you. We are taking you out to lunch when the pandemic is over.
And if you haven't subscribed by now, you are not qualified.
Exactly. You'll get a Happy Meal or something. But no, seriously, thank you all for the love and support you've given us. We really appreciate it. It's gone from something that just the two of us were listening to, constantly on loop ourselves, to sharing it with people. And yeah, just the joy and positivity it's brought. We love to hear from you as well. So please do talk to us. Please do address us on the socials, and drop us an email, podcastismine@gmail.com. And yeah, so thank you so much for all the love and support, and we hope you continue to love and support us.
Thank you very much. So Bhushan, what else has been going on?
Oh, girl, what hasn't been going on? So the UK has had a second national lockdown.
Oh my goodness.
FFS. I mean, really, we understand the reasons for it. We don't want our NHS and our hospitals to get overwhelmed.
No, completely understand.
And there has been a lot of, there is a serious darker side to this. At the same time, this lockdown really, it didn't feel like a lockdown, and it felt very strange. The timing was very strange. We obviously went on a production break, so kind of threw our timing off.
Yeah.
And that's what a big inconvenience that is. But do you know what I mean? It just shows you how it permeated every kind of aspect of life.
No, you're right. It's like a bit of the butterfly effect. It's just one little it's not a little thing start, but everything has been impacted, and I don't know if we've had anything in the way that we would have enjoyed it in the previous year.
No, exactly. And I think the time it's happened as well, November and December, there's quite a lot of religious festivals going on. There's a lot of kind of social meetings and things, and obviously this year has seen a lot of those go away. It was so weird for us where our Lockdown 1 episode was released during Lockdown 2, and we did not see that coming. No. And also listening back to that episode as well, I can't believe how naive we sounded.
We were so excited.
Yeah, but and at that time, that was the best of what we knew. And now, knowing what we know now, we were even when I listened back to the episode, I was like, oh my God, that's not true, or that's kind of... but I didn't know that at the time, and... Yeah. It's quite astonishing.
The comparison, that's the thing. And when I say excited, I think it was just everything was new. There was obviously so much tragedy and trauma around it, but feeling like you could just run to the park. The weather was so good.
Yeah.
We've not really had situations where we probably spend a lot of time in the good weather in the UK because we are on holiday for those 3 days that we have good weather.
Yeah.
But it meant we were obviously recording the podcast outside because it was good enough weather. Trying different things, and listening back to that episode while we were in that lockdown made me think, wow, this one is so different.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like I'm not that excited about it. It's just frustrating. You want it to be over.
Yeah.
So hopefully our episodes have been keeping you going through.
Yes, exactly. And we hope they bring you joy and a bit of distraction. And then finally, what a wonderful moment of hope this autumn was in my second home, the US. My unofficial second home, but my second home nonetheless. So Joe Biden was elected president. Yay!
Hooray! We're waving our hands.
I mean, like with politics, it's always the lesser of two evils. So the lesser of two evils won.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
I mean, it couldn't. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a distinction in terms of how bad the opposition was, and it gave me a sense of, look, you know, we are in a situation where things are going bad, but there is always opportunities to improve.
Precisely.
And people, I was really worried that we were going to end up having Trump elected again, and
Oh,
it made me think,
God.
how can someone who has behaved so badly and, you know, been so heinous in his words and then continue to be elected? So, and because he had I think it's the biggest victory Biden did over any other president. It's such a big slap in his face, and I think he deserves that.
Exactly, and I think it gave us all the hope that we wanted and needed. And I mean, the other wonderful news was Kamala Harris as vice president. So not only the first woman, but the first woman who has Black heritage, South Asian heritage, and it was just a wonderful moment. It was just like
we needed that in 2020.
We so needed that. I mean, I remember when the news broke, and then it just kind of spread, and it was just like, oh, thank God, this is finally. Things
it was a huge sigh.
In
the first few days, I remember kind of listening and thinking, oh my gosh, we're not going to get certainty yet. And we were just waiting and waiting. And then it was clear.
Oh God, that election, that went on and on. Do you know, the only thing that could compare to that was when America's Next Top Model All-Stars.
And they do the...
Do you remember?
Do
you remember? So Angeli won. And then, I mean, then she did something. And then... And then they brought back Lisa and Alison, and you're like, finally, Alison's going to win. And then Lisa won, and you're like, what? What kind of nonsense is this? Honestly. But anyway, I'm jumping ahead there.
Such a good segue, Bhushan.
I'm telling you. So let me close the Diary of His Own.
Close it up.
Put it away, and it's put away for safekeeping now. And so today, what are we going to talk about, Sunny?
Bush, and we're talking about the legendary show America's Next Top Model. Or
you want to be on top.
Oh God! But we're not. So we also refer to it as ANTM,
and we were doing this show because we can't be saying America's Next Top Model the whole time. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Yeah, you want to be on top. And then, so we're not only talking about, not least because it brought us together as friends, but it's been a constant shared interest. And you know, while we've known each other, it was being still produced. Actually, it was still on air.
Yeah.
But it's so iconic, and it can be seen as responsible for launching 1,000 other shows in the same space. So there's international franchises and rival shows. Mm-hmm. We love it. And so much of reality TV owes a debt to ANTM and to Tyra. So for this...
No, just ANTM and Ken Rock.
Oh, sorry. Okay. He is still lurking in those curtains in the shadows. So for this special two-parter, we want to get ready to smize. And if you don't know what that means, then we will educate you, I'm sure. And be displayed as digital art in the model house. We're going to deep dive into the world of ANTM.
So, Sunny, where and when did you first watch or hear about ANTM?
I was trying to wrap my brain thinking back, and it would have been on at home when I lived with my parents as a tiny little child. I must have been.
Tiny little child.
I would...
Bitch, please!
When I was 3.
Yeah, you were watching CBeebies, you were watching ANTM, were you?
You know what? I need to get my niece and nephew on ANTM.
They should be, it's an education. You get them straight onto it.
Pose.
Yeah, exactly, and smize. I mean, they're so beautiful anyway, so like that, they don't need,
cute.
But you can take them to the next level.
They
Get them
to be
that
on
contract,
top.
Yeah, exactly. With Wilhelmina Kids.
But I watched it on Sky Living.
Yes.
No, it was Living TV back then, before it became Sky Living. And this was back in the day when you had like a card that went into your Sky box.
God.
This is the old school days. And I'm sure we didn't actually officially have Living TV because, I don't know if I should be admitting this, but my dad from a friend at work got this gadget that you plug your Sky card into.
Oh my.
And it unlocked all these channels. That's how I had MTV Germany.
Every Brown family had that. And I think like
it was amazing.
Everyone
Sky hated us.
Yeah, you just had to pay just like 100 quid or something, a one-off.
Yes.
Oh my God, every brown person I know, there was like kind of like, that's the reason I didn't have Sky, because my dad was like, oh no, like, you have to pay it every month.
It was expensive.
It was expensive, but then this thing allowed you to just pay £100.
I mean, it was totally illegal,
Yeah.
so I don't know if I should be
Well, no, that was back then, exactly. Yeah. So
Yeah, no, I'm sure it was legitimate. I think Sky sold these.
yeah, I think so too. Like Sky put them out in the market to actually knowing what we know now about how companies operate, I would not be surprised if they did roll out that cheaper product to get
exactly
infiltrate new markets.
But yeah, so that's how I legitimately
digress.
watched it. Anyway,
anyway, enough about that. But see, you think of that. I can give you an exact date and time of when I first heard America's Next Top Model. So my first office job ever. See, I wasn't 3 years old when America's Next Top Model came out, listeners. It was my first office job, and this girl I was working with was always going on about this show, and she's like, "Oh, one of the girls on it has got lupus, and the models have to do this, and the models have to do that." And I was just like, I was a bit annoyed because I used to think of I still do. I thought of myself as a fashion authority, and this girl and this girl wasn't. And I was just kind of like, I was like, why are you telling me about fashion stuff? I should be telling you. Anyway, fast forward to August. September
2015.
September 2020. Yeah. If you fast forward to September 2004, my mum, younger brother, and I went to India that year, and we came back on September the 15th. And that day was kind of like everyone was just mooching around the house, after when you'd come back. It was a morning flight. It was Air India. Enough said.
Oh my gosh, it was a 3-day flight.
Exactly. So we were like, exactly. So we actually had left back in August, but arrived back in London in September.
It felt 3 seasons.
Exactly. Oh God. And then I remember after it was about 1:45 p.m. and I was flipping through the channels, and I flipped onto channel 5, and then I just saw that that clip art opening sequence of the A train hurtling, coming rattling towards us, the and what was that font? I don't know what that font was. The America's Next Top Model.
I can't even remember the first seasons.
The UPN seasons.
The UPN ones.
Yeah. But that opening played, and then I was like, oh, this is America's Next Top Model. This is that program that girl was talking about. And then I was watching it, and I was like, hang on, none of these girls have lupus. And none of these girls have... And then it clicked with me that this is season 1. So the Channel 5... because we didn't have Sky Living, or Living TV, as you correctly said, we were watching on Channel 5, and the second window repeats. And then
I didn't even know they were on Channel 5.
I know. Well, this is how us plebs had to watch it. And then... And so they showed season 1 and 2 back to back, and then that took us up to Christmas because they were showing it every single day, like every weekday.
Yeah.
In that lunchtime slot. And I was soon hooked. My brothers were just kind of like, oh yeah, it's a bit boring. And my mum was like, what are they talking about? We had to put subtitles on and translate half of it. Because she just didn't understand.
You translate Smize.
Exactly. This is it. Well, now you see my dilemma. Oh my God. And we were just kind of watching it and kind of trying to make sense of it all. And yeah, so they showed season 1 and 2. And then the thing was, if you missed it, you missed it. There was no catch up. There was none of that.
Oh, Living TV put it on about 5 times each day, I think.
Oh, you were so lucky. Honestly, we had kind of the VHS player. So I'd set as soon as it's 1:45, if anyone wanted to watch Neighbours or Countdown, I'd be like,
forget it.
Exactly. No, we only had the one TV. So I had to be like, right, I'm recording this. No one can do this. So I know. Oh my God, children!
Don't change the channel.
Exactly. Don't change the channel. Exactly. No one touched that remote control. You had to hide the video remote control so no one would touch it. And oh God,
these were the days.
Those were the days. And then they showed season 3, and then they stopped showing them.
Yeah, because I don't remember it being on Channel 5. I don't ever remember it being on there, so they can't have had the rights for it for very long.
No, I think they only had one kind of window.
Yeah.
And then after that, so as a result, as a consequence, I missed season 4 and 5 when they originally came out. And then during that time, do you remember LimeWire? And do you remember all those?
Yes. Oh my God, we need to talk about these
platforms. So that's I remember I had then gotten another job, and Lost was the big show at that time. That was the biggest cock tease ever. Honestly, it was just so.
It was useless.
It went nowhere. It was like a hookup that went nowhere. It was just...
Yeah, they didn't even know what the story was going to be while they were writing the first episode.
I know. And then do you remember how Sky would show it one week, and then Channel 4 would show it the week after, and it'd be like, oh God, we really got hooked into it, and then when it went to nowhere, it's just do you know what, I give up on this. No. But at that time, that was the only thing that we had. That was our only box set that we could actually... Yeah. There wasn't even a box set.
There wasn't box... I mean, we didn't... Yeah, we had VHS. We'd have to go to Blockbuster to watch stuff. I remember watching an episode now that Netflix is playing old shows. They put on Sister Sister, and I was like, we need to do
we're going to go into that. Yeah, exactly.
But one of the episodes, they were in a Blockbuster picking VHSs, not even DVDs. I was like, oh, this is what we used to do. We used to go with my dad to Choices, it was called, and it was in Westfield, and it was... Yeah, we were so excited. They had games there, they had DVD.
They had an adult section.
Oh my god, it was so embarrassing, especially when you're with your parents and you're like trying not to
look through that kind of that horrible kind of straw. What was it, curtain? That rubbishy coloured curtain. Everyone had.
They had no curtain.
Fringe, the fringe curtain. Oh, really?
No curtains.
Wow. Straight on our backs.
It was just a top shelf.
You'd be like, don't look at it, don't look at it, don't look, and then suddenly you're looking at it. But yes, then I had another job, and then this guy kind of like, he was getting us lost, and he was downloading it and putting it on a CD. And then he was like, I was like, how are you doing this? Because I said, like, because I had to buy a batch of CDs from Argos and like give them the CDs. And I was like, I can't keep buying you CDs. And he said, look, it's really easy. You just go to this site and torrent it and stuff. And then like the torrents didn't do it for a long time. And then there was one torrent guy, God bless him. I don't know where because the people who uploaded the torrents, they became really famous.
They were infringing copyright. We weren't breaking the law.
We weren't breaking They were breaking it for us. So basically what they would do is they would like record these shows, cut the adverts out, and like some of them were really good where they'd keep the credit sequence in there, and others would show you the next time as well at the end.
To see Ken Mock's name at the end.
We wanted to see the full credits, and we wanted to see what happens
the
next time.
Yeah. It was always missing online.
Yeah, and like it wasn't showing anywhere else. And so then this guy was like, eventually, like he put one top model up, and it got like all these streams, like because it used to be like whichever got the most stream would be at the top.
Yeah,
and like ANTM got it, and then like in the forums, which is how we used to live back in the days. And then like someone had written like, "Oh, my girlfriend loves this. Thank you. My wife is so grateful. And thank you for this and all of that." And then like, I was like, "Oh my god!" And then this guy was like, "Yeah, no, my girlfriend has been nagging at me to upload this in Project Runway, so I'm going." And then that's
Project Runway on by then.
It started in that same kind of time. Not 2004. I think it was a bit. So we're talking about 2006, 2007.
Yeah, that
now.
makes sense. Yeah.
And then after that, there was series were always on there. So we saw the American version, as it were.
Yeah.
There was no cuts or anything like that, and that's how we used to have to get it.
Yeah, and sometimes, occasionally, you would get the US adverts thrown in, and I was like, they do adverts so many times.
I know. There was like every time you cut to black, and you're like, "What? That can't be another
again."
advert. Yeah.
I was like, and then all these disclaimers on their adverts for medication. I was like, seriously,
It's like, don't take paracetamol, it might
or
kill
you will die.
Yeah,
and I was like, okay then. That's
it terrified you, like goodness me.
But it takes me back when you talk about things like LimeWire, because I think the first time I used things like that was like Napster.
Napster. Yeah, the other one. Yeah,
and you were like, because this is when we had dial-up internet, and the MP3 is only like 3 megabytes, but you'd get to like 2.9, and you'd be like, you need it there because you couldn't listen to it until it was full, and then someone would pick the phone up, and then you'd hear my mum shout saying, "Are you still on the internet?" I was like, I nearly downloaded this song. I was desperate for this Brandy song or whatever it was. And then when you got to like downloading shows, you had to set it overnight.
Yeah.
But then along the time it wouldn't download either. It would like cut halfway through, or I'd watch it and I'd think I've got it, and then you'd get like 20 minutes in and it just cut out.
Oh, that was so luckily we by that time had got a second line. Not a second line, but I don't know how we negotiated it. But somehow the internet was like kind of going.
There was no Wi-Fi back then.
No,
it was wired.
It was wired, and somehow I don't know. I think it was the block or something, but somehow we were able to have our internet without clogging up the phone.
ISDN.
It could have been ISDN, our tech heads can tell us.
Oh, yes.
But it kind of, once that happened, then in the morning we'd start setting it up. So like you'd start the download. So then by the time you came back from work or school or whatever it was,
it was about 5% in.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God, that was the most heartbreaking thing, wasn't it? When it was like an episode you really wanted to watch, and suddenly like 5%, or the torrent broke or failed. And that would break your heart.
Because I'm sure on things like LimeWire and Napster, you had to have, if you were sharing stuff, you needed to be online.
Yes.
So they were sharing it with you. So if they dropped off offline, I was like, I haven't finished downloading this episode. I'm desperate.
That was the thing. It was like a feeding frenzy. And then the other thing was because we only had one home computer at home.
Yeah, we only had one desktop.
Yeah, and so both my brothers would also want to download. So sometimes we all watched the same shows, but sometimes like things like Top Model and Project Runway, my brothers didn't want to watch.
No.
So they always got pushed to the bottom of the pile, and then I would like try and put mine at the top of the pile, and it would turn into this like, why are you doing? Occasionally blow ups and bust ups and. Oh God, it really was.
Those were the days. I mean, you know what? We were so grateful, and it's not as if we didn't want to legitimately find a way to watch this.
No,
you couldn't. I mean,
exactly.
Even on Living TV, I don't think it came to the UK very quickly. I think it still took a bit of time. Didn't it?
It took about a year until it finished its American run, and then it would. And also because the other thing was as well, it wasn't as the show was initially only commissioned for 2 seasons.
Yeah.
for UPN, and then I think it went to another network, which I can't remember the name.
CW.
So it became the CW afterwards.
Later on.
But before, in between UPN and CW, the CW network used to be called something else.
You normally see those kind of names at the end. I can't remember. Yeah.
Same here. It's like totally like I came across it in my research, and I was thinking, oh yeah, I must remember this. Well, but like I remember that there was like different networks and stuff. And that was the reason as well that no one could really get a distribution deal with...
Is that because obviously you see this through your work in terms of how things take time, obviously, to get licensed and agreed to be, distributed abroad.
Precisely. So that I could... Now it makes sense to me. Back then I was just like, why is this not on BBC One? Why is this not on ITV? Why is it on Channel 4?
To be fair, I don't think it would ever make BBC One, would it? Because we would be the only ones watching.
I know. I think we'd be watching on BBC Three. We'd have to download... But although
that didn't even exist.
But, it was really difficult to get this show. So, anyway, but moving on. So, who was your least favourite judge, and why was it Twiggy and Brian Boy? Honestly,
oh my god! I mean, Twiggy is very early seasons, isn't she? If we think back to season 1, was she even in season 1?
So I think it was Janice Dickinson, then it's Paulina Poroskova,
and
then I think
it came to Twiggy. I mean, it was good because occasionally it meant that there was a bit of a reference to the British audience, but I was like, I didn't know who you were. Like my dad did. Yeah, because my poor parents had to have to watch this with me. And they were like, Twiggy's on. And I was like, remember thinking, oh my God, I don't even know who it is. And my dad does.
I just thought to myself, why have they got this old fart on there? 'Cause she's like, do you remember there's one girl, she was like, oh, you've got quite a resting bitch face. And she's like, I thought you looked quite miserable.
I love that altercation between... But she was very defensive, that girl. She was just like, look, let me just get this straight. I am not moody. I don't have a funny disposition. I was like... Wow, looking back. But should we give them a little bit of an overview of the show, actually? If they haven't seen it.
Okay, yes.
I'm worried that someone doesn't know. I mean, if they don't know.
Yeah.
So that it is it's a model search, isn't it? Headed up by Tyra Banks, who is like the supermodel.
The saviour.
She was saviour. One of the earliest supermodels. And the first black supermodel to grace the cover of Sports Illustrated. Is that right? I feel like I always get it.
Well, do you know, like now, again, knowing what we know, and when I say knowing what we know, knowing what I know, she went a supermodel.
She wasn't?
She didn't ever do a Vogue cover.
Oh, not even recently.
No, she's not been on the cover of Vogue at all. And like, I know everyone's gonna be like, "Oh, Vogue isn't the benchmark." Yes, it is. Like, if you don't understand what role Vogue plays in fashion, you really don't understand fashion. Like, But she had Sports Illustrated. Yes, she was the first black woman on Sports Illustrated, which is a massive achievement.
A huge American publication, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that was a huge, huge achievement at that time, because you think about it, there was hardly any other black cover girls at that time.
In the 90s.
In the 90s, there's only one other, who we will be talking to at another point. Yes, exactly. That's a whole other discussion.
But this is what I think. I almost feel a little bit like they were trying to just have an American black supermodel.
Yeah, well, for the purposes of this definition,
we'll go back.
Like this, like writing an essay. For the purposes of this essay, yes, I will refer to Tyra Banks as a supermodel, but she's not.
But she started this show, which is a model search across the US, and there's a panel of judges that each week will judge a photograph that the models have taken.
Yes,
and the girls are undiscovered talent usually. I mean, I'm sure they're probably already working in the industry in some sense. But each week they go through a process where they'll do a challenge, and they'll do something right before the judging panel as well as a further challenge after their photo's been taken. And then they'll go through judging who the best photo was and who performed best in the actual challenge, and then decide who the best photo is of the week.
Yeah.
And then they kind of whittle that down to the final two girls, and Tyra does this epic moment where she always says,
how many photos does she have in her hands?
I only have 2 photos in my hands.
And what happens to the person whose photo is not in her hands?
She must immediately leave and go back to the house and pack all your belongings and leave.
And do you know what's crazy about the whole thing? Because it's like kind of like, if you like apply for a job and you're waiting, if you don't get the job, you get the feedback. Well, you're getting feedback beforehand.
Before you go, exactly. You better listen to all these notes. Exactly. You ain't going anywhere.
It's like, you are not qualified. You do not have this experience. So who goes? It's like, well, you just made it obvious, bitch.
Neither of them are capable, apparently. Oh my God.
And like, I love how it always used to set up really neatly. So it's like, we've got one model who's really commercial and she's really this and she's really that, but can she do high fashion? And then there'll be the other model who's like, she's high fashion, but can she do commercial? And then you'd be like, so who goes? And then it's like the Indian dramas, you know, it cuts to everyone's reaction.
Everyone's face, and you're just like zooming in.
And even our faces, like watching, we're kind of glued to the TV, and then she'll be like, high fashion model always be commercial. And then you see the girl reacting however.
It was the best. That
drama.
Script. I know that she was nailed that script. I mean, who knows how many takes it went, but she knew it so well, and it never changed.
It never changed.
The whole show.
And not only that, her voice, like she always used to do this thing where she'd stop.
Yes.
And it's like there's a full stop after every word.
Ken is behind that camera pointing at us saying, no.
Ken's like cutting the microphone, just pushing this button like block, 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 block. And then, like, do you remember, like, there's the funniest one was when in season 2, so when Sarah, who I thought was a great model.
Reminds me of Sarah again.
So Sarah was, I think she was one of the first Middle Eastern heritage models to be on America's Next Top Model. And she, do you remember when Tyra did Shake Your Booty?
I've listened to that this morning just to get ready. Just get some Beyonce. I know this is a proper insult. Beyonce vibes.
Do you know? So it's so funny because I remember at that time Beyonce had this long red weave because that was around the time of like Crazy in Love. And
it was definitely when she started launching as a solo.
Yeah, it's crazy. It was the whole Crazy in Love thing. I remember Beyonce was doing the red hair thing, and then suddenly Tyra turns up with this long red weave, and I was just like, hang on, didn't Beyonce do that first? And then I was like, no, but Tyra's in fashion, and like we get top model like 10 years later here, so clearly Beyonce copied Tyra. But now I realise actually maybe she copied Beyonce. Yeah. So they did the Shake Your Booty video. There's a great
Shake Your Booty.
And I love the beginning of the video because like watching it now is just like a real mindfuck. It's so fun. Like the way that we would accept these things without question back in the day. But now, like, you know, when she's like kind of in front of the mirror and all the other girls are like clamoring for space,
trying to get the camera shot.
But then there's a great story Tyra used to tell, like how backstage it was really bitchy. People wouldn't let you go to the mirror, and you had to try and do your. There was a challenge once when the girls would like, they had to all choose makeup from the same table. And start doing it themselves and do it in a little mirror, and then she'd be like, oh, when I was in Paris and sharing with 4 other girls, and they would block the bathroom or whatever, and I'd have to do my makeup in my room and go to a go-see and then go and do a fashion show. And like she really did in one way. It's madness because the way it kind of like flipped to both scripts, like kind of like on the one hand, Tyra was like, it's awful. Like, you think to yourself, oh, well, if that was me, I don't know how I'd be able to do my makeup in a small mirror like that. And then she'd be like, but I still persevered and I still managed. And then I got the cover of Elle. And then Jill Ben Simone shot me and blah, blah, blah.
Jill Ben Simone. And how many times have we heard that name?
I think she put him on the map.
She did. Was he? He must have been a big photographer.
He was a big. Like it was so funny when I was looking through some old Vogues, and I was like, and I saw like pre 1990.
The credit will be on the photo.
Yeah,
on the picture.
And it was like taken by Jill Benson. I was like, oh my god, he shot Tyra, and then it's like, no,
no, it makes sense. She's like, I'm paying you back for all those times.
Exactly. He took one photo that one time in the park, and
oh man.
So anyway, so Tyra's got this music video, and then like so she's got Sarah and Joanna. So spoiler alert, Joanna goes on to win it.
Super tall, isn't she?
Super tall. And do you remember like she had like she did this amazing picture where she's wearing like a kind of motorcycle helmet.
Yeah.
And that was the winner's picture.
Yeah.
She was her and Mercedes
in
the final.
She was actually a big girl when she was younger as well, wasn't she?
Yeah. So remember they brought that story. So this was the beginning of her redemption, because in the beginning they were kind of like Joanna's kind of like, oh, she could be a great model, but she doesn't have this, she doesn't have that.
She doesn't have the typical body.
She doesn't have the typical body. So her body. So she and also they were like. Because I remember then Tyra in the critique when she was talking to, I think it was she was up against Shandy for elimination or something.
I remember Shandy.
Oh, Shandy, we love Shandy. And then like she was like, oh, you don't have the knowledge and stuff like that. You don't know about fashion. But then Joanna in the final episode was dropping names like, obviously Marc Jacobs, this, and she was saying insider names, and I was like, where? Not Marc Jacobs.
She's prepared.
Yeah, she was prepared. She knew a lot more than we had been led
to believe. Yeah.
So this was like kind of the beginning of her redemption arc, as it were.
Yeah.
And Tyra was like, who am I to tell one of you to go home when I'm starting something new? And there's this great shot where she like gets teary, and then in the background Nigel rolls his eyes. And it's like there's this really quick cut of Nigel just rolling his eyes, and I was just like, Nigel, she is paying for your supper.
You better be happy, Nigel.
You were noted because of Tyra.
Oh no, I know a noted photographer. Oh my god, the introductions for the judges were hilarious. They were so funny. know we've been shading some of the ones that we don't like, but some of the favourites have got to be people like Janice Dickinson.
Oh.
She was a loose cannon. I'm honest, the sass. I've never known it. And I think this show, even though it was meant to be like a talent search and help, they're meant to kind of train them and give them a bit of like a new look. We need to talk about that.
Yeah,
at some point,
that.
exactly. But actually, there were so many shady, cutthroat moments, and you know this as well because you're so passionate about fashion. Fashion is a really shady, dark industry in so many ways, and they were showing that. And I even though I find it difficult sometimes, I thought it's good they're showing it at least.
Yeah.
And Janice was a really good kind of example of how mean people can be.
Well, I'm so glad you said that because you made me think of like a really important point around the whole thing. Like, can you imagine in this day and age now, sending a 16-year-old who's never been away from home, sending her to live with a bunch of other girls who she's never met before, having grown men with cameras following her around everywhere. And, you know, that whole kind of, like, it puts it in context now, because I remember, like, watching series 1, there was, like, do you remember Elise? So she was she was a medical student. Short hair, she had short hair, very pixie cut, kind of elfish looking.
Yes, dark hair.
Dark hair.
Yeah,
I mean, that snake shot, you know, when they did the snake shoot where they had pythons around. Those were iconic shots, by the way. Those are still standing the test of time.
The photo bit, we have to talk about how amazing the photo piece was. Because even though I loved the drama and all the kind of attitude, I loved watching looking at the pictures, and I always used to think, you couldn't pause back then because I didn't record
but
it.
It was so strong that the visual was like the visuals of for example, the snake shoot is in my mind. The one in season cycle 3 where the girls had the insects. Yeah, Takara.
I'm just doing
Takara. Or are you doing Yaya or Eva?
Eva the diva.
Eva Diva.
I'm doing a little fingers that look a little bit like a tarantula.
Oh my god,
that was iconic.
And what was really iconic about that photo shoot was 3 black models. So there was like Eva.
Yes.
And then there was Yaya. And then do you remember when Tyra came out with, what's my picture doing up there? It's like, no, bitch, that's clearly Yaya. Like, why
trying to reach?
Exactly. It's like, you could never do what she just did. And then Takara. So Takara was the plus size girl. And then Takara went on to be in Italian Vogue and is still modelling to this day.
Wow.
And the point I was going to make was like how Elise and Yaya was so super intelligent. Like, so Elise was a medical student, and then there's this whole thing where she was like, "Oh well, I'm going to medical school after this, so this is just paying for my summer." Yeah. And then everyone was like, "Oh, you're mad! You can be a model." Like, this, you know, she was like, "No, I want to be a doctor instead." And it was like, at the time, I was like, "Are you mad? You want to be a doctor? You want to work really hard when you can just model?" And like, you know. But now I think actually that's such a great thing that she did, like Elise. And then Yaya as well. I remember how smart she was. Do you remember the girls went to Japan in that cycle?
They did,
and they had to do a tea ceremony. So they have to like open door and like you get
and you were getting critiqued on how to open doors and stuff.
You get these American girls blundering away, like sliding a door back and forth, slamming it, and that's like really so insensitive and like insulting to Japanese culture. But then Yaya came along and she performed the ceremony with real dignity and respect.
It was almost choreographed. She knew that it was like a dance, like do it with a sense of kind of, I don't know, style
and just hold yourself well. And then even like she was such a teacher's pet that when they asked her a question, how are you, she answered back in Japanese. And I was like, wow. And
that was a shutdown.
That was a shutdown. But you know, the lesson I actually, what I didn't realise is America's Next Top Model has taught me so much. Yeah. Like that was a lesson I learned in my head where it's like, you've got to be over prepared. You've got to be like
we know this.
Like you've got to if you've got to do a Japanese tea ceremony, you've got to know what it's about before.
Oh my god, the challenges that were put them through such hell, and it was such a car crash every time, and it was the best to watch because part of me was like, I could do this so well, and the other part was I wanted to be so bad because I want to laugh at this late.
Well, do you know that reality TV at that time, because America's Next Top Model really was the first competitive reality show, because we'd had like so obviously we had like our pop stars and singing shows, but you know we don't count those. No. We had Big Brother, which again was a competitive, but America's Next Top Model was very specific in terms of like they had a very specific brief on what they were looking for. Like, you know, I mean, don't forget the prizes, like, you know, a contract with Wilhelmina Models, a digital spread.
It wasn't even digital, was it, at the beginning?
It was like a cover of Teen magazine or something. God. But it was really kind of specific and narrow what they were looking for. And it was kind of like obtuse enough so that you didn't know what exactly they were looking for. Yeah. But also it made me think as well, like, you know, reality TV at that time, it was all about having a go, wasn't it? It's kind of like you can go to a singing show, even if you can't sing, You can just
You
have a
don't
go.
have that pop star quality.
But
just go sing.
Just
and
turn
do
up
it.
and you'll still be a star.
Yeah.
And it was the same with this kind of modelling show where, like, you know, I mean, all the girls they chose looked like models anyway. And like all they did was like they took the casting process and just kind of like really kind of blew it up for their TV screen. But at the same time, it was quite a revelation because then you did realise, actually, do you know what? Like, I was always like, oh, I want to be a model. But then, like, you see all these people modelling and you're like, oh my God, they look so much prettier than me and there's so much this than me and there's so much that than me.
Did you sometimes think, when I used to watch it, what shocked me was I remember first thinking when I was watching the early seasons, thinking, wow, they're not that pretty. It was because it was not pretty that you needed to be. You needed to have the height. You needed, at that time, I think in the early seasons, they were very much about one conventional body shape or type as well. And probably needed to be a little bit more angular, distinctive, and also know how to model. I didn't appreciate that before watching the show. I was like, they're good looking, they'll just take a picture. It's no, it's not that. You've got to know how to move, you've got to know position. The other thing that I'm always drilling into people whenever we're taking pictures, find your light.
Find your light.
How do people not know?
Child.
I mean, Tyra taught me that.
Yeah, Tyra taught me. Yeah,
no.
absolutely. That whole kind of thing about, and then she also taught me the difference between commercial and like editorial. Which is basically put your tits away, get them out,
keep your legs open towards the camera or to the side.
And then like Mr. J would be like directing, like, you look like you're taking a dump, like, you know. When someone's squatting on the floor. But you realise how much, like, the show it was like a double-edged sword,
educational,
wasn't it? It was educational because in one way it kind of taught. So, for example, if you look at cycle 1 where Adrian won,
the girl was in a picture, the final one with the diamonds.
Yeah, she looked incredible.
I haven't seen that since season 1. It's still, I can remember.
Seared into your memory.
It is. She looked incredible.
She looked really, really good. But do you remember she went to hospital and she was so ill?
Oh, because she was dehydrated.
Dehydrated, yeah. But then she still turned up to the shoot.
Shaking.
And then I thought to myself, and like, you know, she looked like she was about to collapse or whatever. And then I thought that in that moment showed me, like, you know, look, if you really want something, you have to just go for it. Like, you know, and that is, like, I've carried, you're going to laugh at this, but I've always, and I said this like in my Bhushan's Fashion Friday podcast as well.
I love it.
But, you know, Bhushan's Fashion Friday owes a huge debt to America's Next Top Model because there were so many times, like, when I was, you know, posing in -5 or, like, you know, posing in, so for example, when we did our 5-year shot.
Yes.
Earlier this year.
It was the hottest day of the year.
Hottest day of the year. And there I am in full makeup, in a suit, in a top, and all kinds of nonsense. And
prancing around,
finding my light, nearly burning my corneas.
We both knew that. I knew you knew that, and I knew that too when we were taking the picture.
Because, like, you instantly knew, like, because of Top Model, you knew how to frame it and what would work. I knew that I had to pose in a certain way, and then remember I talked about how I go through all the film.
Yeah, same here.
And like,
and that's how you pick your pictures and you're going to pose.
And that was how.
Funny. I feel like we've learned this without really being super. Because it's not like I sat down and listened to an episode and think this is how I need to take a picture. But you were taught.
It was just something taught, and then, like, do you know there was another episode where they met Benny Medina.
Yes.
And then 50 Cent throws Lisa, was it in the pool or something?
Oh, yeah.
But that, again, was like another crucial episode, which I didn't realise. Only now, when I was going through my research and seeing that clip again, I thought, you know, I remember when I watched it at the time, I was like, oh my God, if I met Benny Medina, I'd be really impressive. I'd be like, I'll make sure all my shit was together, I'd look good, blah, blah. And it just made me realise when I was meeting people in the industry and kind of talking to them, be ready for them, how to approach them, just to be confident, to remember that, you know, maybe in my mind that Benny Medina is like this mythical figure, but actually he's a human being, and like I talk to him and impress him.
That's true.
And be memorable. I mean, I think that was the thing with Tyra. Like it was kind of obscure, but at the same time, if you had it, you had it.
Yeah, no, exactly. She would pick up on some sort of, like, I don't want to use a fair term, X factor, but there was something about a girl and she believed in it. It didn't matter what your background was and your history. And she wanted people that were very passionate. And that same sentiment you mentioned in terms of, look, if you really want something, then that is probably going to be more than enough to get you a place to fight for a chance against some other competition for it. Because the thing is, there's nothing more frustrating when you're watching the show when girls just gave up sometimes.
Oh, that was,
like, come on, do you want to do this or not? And a lot of them actually had the look, but they didn't have the actual ability, and that made me realize, look, you have to have both.
It really was both, because I think the other thing as well, because it did kind of simulate real conditions, or when we say real, we weren't in the fashion industry, so we don't know, but I mean,
based on what Tyra told
based on
which
what
we believe that.
Exactly, it's Tyra's belief. So I wonder, like, sometimes, like, you know, if we if they were actually showing the truth or not. Like, you know how sometimes it was like, was Tyra making it up on the spot? Yes. But at the same time, fashion was like that. Like, you know, Tyra was right that you could go to a designer and they might think you're, you know, you could be doing so well one week and then the next week you've fallen down. And then also the other idea of like the girls all living together and stuff. I think that was why so many of because like some of the girls who didn't win actually went on to have really good careers. So like, look at Molly Sue. Do you remember Molly Sue who got the Rosemary's Baby pixie cut? Tyra didn't get it because the other girl, Camille, yeah,
she's nailing it. She was shading Tyra recently, but we were talking about that.
I think you're thinking of Winnie Harlow.
Oh, sorry, Winnie Harlow,
yeah. And she did. I mean, she didn't win, but she's like.
So Camille was season 2, wasn't she?
Camille was season 2, but I think Camille went on.
She's still doing pretty good.
I mean, Yaya, like, I mean,
she's an actress.
She's an actress now. Yeah. See, I understand why Eva won because Eva needed that title at that point. Not that Eva's not talented, and we know her from Real Housewives of Atlanta now.
And she was definitely basic. She got kicked out. She's not in the next season.
Oh, really?
She's out now.
Oh, goodness.
She's not good enough.
Oh.
She didn't bring the drama. She was so dramatic in America's Next Top Model. She was Eva the Diva.
Yeah.
She didn't bring it in America's Next. She did occasionally. She did like a few like good kind of back and forths with one of the other housewives, Marlo. But she just didn't want to be vulnerable and kind of share some of the tough things that she was going through, and that's the only way to be success on a show like that.
Yeah, you really have to bear it all.
She wasn't bearing anything.
Oh, that's a shame.
But she's popping out loads of kids.
Because I did see that episode where she was getting married and then she goes for dinner with her mum and she breaks down in tears and like her mum's kind of like, yeah, what are you crying for?
Shady.
Yeah, mum was really, that was like a real kind of like, you know, dark note. I thought was really
her stuff was boring.
But so many of the models like who have like kind of like who didn't win have gone on. So sometimes Tyra didn't always get it right. And I think, again, it goes back to that whole thing of like determination and resilience. Like this show really did teach you resilience, where it was like, you know, if you want this bad enough, you'll stick at it. And if you don't want it, then something will get. But then other times as well, it also kind of mirrored how unfair things can be sometimes in real, like in the adult world. Because I did think the whole idea of like, you know, you'd see a model and you knew this girl was good and you knew she could win the competition and she was slaying right from the... So for example, do you remember Anne, for example?
What reminds me of Anne?
So Anne was in the high fashion cycle. She was a really tall girl. She won like 5 pictures of the week in a row, which has been... She worked with Matthew Rolston. Do you remember when they did all the high top fashion photographers?
Really
I think it was the Vogue Italia spread.
Oh my gosh.
And then like Anne was doing so well, and then they kind of brought her down to bring her up again because this is the reality TV trope.
They want to make a good show and they don't want it to be too obvious. But the thing is, do you believe? Sometimes I would think, is this even really a search? Do they know who they? Because we had no choice, did we?
Yeah.
It was all the judges. It's not like a phone in and a vote. I know they did that later down the line, which I thought was awful because it had no impact. I know they were trying to make it modern, but it didn't work, from my view. That's
why I was saying that Brian Boy was such an awful judge.
It's just useless.
Like he was just absolutely useless, and the whole kind of your social media score added in with your. I was just like, Tyra, stop trying to be clever, okay? We know you went to university for a week.
Oh, she went to Harvard. She keeps telling us I'm a Harvard graduate.
So can we talk about this? So, like, it's hard. So, do you know what? There's a Bollywood actress called Priti Zinta, and she went to Harvard as well. And I was like, what? You went to Harvard? Like,
did they pay for a diploma?
So no, there's business. We could go to Harvard. Because basically, there's a business school thing that you can go. So when
you're just signing up for a course.
It's a course at your local college.
Oh my gosh!
Like the thing is, this course is like it's a proper business accreditation, and it's truncated. And the idea is that if you're a brand or you're a celebrity, how do you market yourself?
Okay.
And so you go to this course, and it's a very elite course. Like you have to pay a lot for it. You have to have a certain amount of criteria and credentials.
Famous,
So Tyra obviously had that because because the other thing I have to give the funny thing is we shade Tyra and we also praise Tyra.
We love her.
Yeah, and I think it's a bit, but we've got this kind of like love-hate relationship with her because she can be so fucking annoying at times. But then other times she's so inspirational and you're just like, oh.
I think she's super smart. I mean, I'm not discrediting of saying that she couldn't go to Harvard, but she is clearly a very smart, confident, articulate woman.
Yes.
And she's actually a real leader. You see that, don't you, when she kind of like commands a presence when she's giving critiques, because I don't think that's easy to do. And it comes from a hell of a lot of experience and know-how. And I feel like they respect her to listen to her. And it's nice when we'll talk about this later, but there's so much respect from most of the girls.
Yeah, do you remember that girl who collapsed when she saw her? Tyra, oh my god, Tyra, and she fell on the floor. One of my friends who I worked with at that time when that season came out, he always used to watch it before me, And like, so that was the one time I remember I saw that episode before he got to see it. So when, as soon as I saw him that next day, I collapsed on the floor. I was like, oh my God, Chris, it's you. Like, we were just like cracking up at that. But you're so right. Tyra, because like she spun out a career.
Oh my God.
Like we are still
Bankable Productions.
Bankable. Clues in the title. But seriously, we're still talking about her now. She's still relevant. She's like in 2020. She is hosting Dancing with the Stars. She is still.
Just saw someone I needed to send this to you. Someone sent me a picture of her latest dress, a blue dress.
That was me. I sent it to you.
The loofah.
Oh, the loofah.
It was a loofah and there's a picture of Tyra.
No, I think I sent that to you because I also said there was this other awful outfit. Like someone said, like Tyra stylist needs to be fired. Like, because she sometimes would wear. Do you know? And what's really funny is like I'd see her some of the stuff she wears on the red carpet. I'm like, what the fuck are you wearing?
But the thing is, this is the difference. She's a model. She's not a designer, and they're so used to looking absolutely incredible. Because guess what? They've had a whole team produce the photo, but they have no clue when they go on the street.
Well, this is the thing. No, but she's got a red card. She's got a stylist. She's not like Blake Lively. I don't know if you know who Blake Lively is from Gossip Girl. She chooses her own clothes and she has good taste, and she chooses like know. But Tyra has a style. Someone told her that
she pissed someone off.
She really pissed someone off. I always, do you know, in my heart of hearts, I always used to hope that it would be like she'd be on the worst dress list on Fashion Police, and then I'd be like praying in my heart of hearts, this is going to be an ANTM challenge where she's like, I wore this on purpose to show you guys like how the media troll you. And I was waiting for that challenge to come, and it never came. And I was like, Tyra!
We talked about it on a talk show.
But the thing is that she once sent the girls. There's a challenge where she sent them to Old Navy, which is kind of like the Gap in the US. And she was like, you have to come up with a model look on a budget.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been doing as well. Because I can't afford like the top labels. And that was how so many of us used to do, like, you know, and still do.
But it ends up coming through in the high street, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The designer brands influence some of the...
Devil Wears Prada. It's brilliant.
You thought you just picked it up.
Exactly.
But actually, it was chosen for you.
By the very people on this podcast. Oh, goodness me.
But then we knew more about the fashion industry when we were watching that show. We knew a little bit more. We had more insight.
Mm-hmm. So that we knew what a go-see was.
Oh my God. The amount of times we'd be like, booked because of Angelique. We'll talk about her later.
Oh, God, we've got to talk about that.
Oh, my goodness.
So,
but yeah, we've talked about some of our favourite and least...
well, we tried to, but we can't segue.
We segued up. But I think we need to give a little special mention to people like Miss J and Mr. J. Who
they were brilliant.
They were so good.
They are brilliant. I mean,
they're still like, Mr. J still looks the same. I saw on YouTube, and then I was like, you have not changed.
Not aged a single day. He still looks... And Miss J as well, like, she's fabulous as well, watching her. Like, and what's really important about Miss J is that's the first kind of example of I think it was a trans person on television.
Was Miss J trans?
I believe she was. I don't know.
Oh, transgender.
Transgender, yeah.
So not transvestite.
No, transgender. Yes. And so I thought that, you know, when that was the first time we saw someone transgender in that time. And because first when we saw, I remember I first saw Miss J on a program called Model Behaviour, which is on Channel 4. And
we love Model Behaviour. Was that with Nathan?
Nathan, the South African. Yeah, got the cover of JQ, and that girl Camille got the cover of Glamour.
Because it was men and women.
Yeah.
Oh, they were so hard.
That was a great show.
Oh, wow.
Really
Why didn't that come back?
I know, they should have recommissioned
it. T4?
Yes, I think it was T4, yeah.
T4 was
T4.
That was like one of the best Saturday mornings. It was like an alternative to Live and Kicking, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was not like an SMTV or a thingy, Live and Kicking girl. I was all T4 all the way.
I love T4.
All the American imports.
Yeah, definitely. But I think this is a really good segue into talking about the show having a lot of backlash as well.
Well, yeah, recently it has, hasn't it? Like, you know, in terms of like looking at it through a modern kind of viewpoint, there is a lot kind of that kind of...
Yeah, because I think that when I look back and reflect, because I've had other people say to me, oh no, it's just too shady. And I'm like, look, I know it is. But what I took away from it was, look, this is entertainment and I'm sassy and I like sassy humour. And also there's a fashion element to it. There's a bit of an education element about how to take a photo and showing your passion and commitment. Do you really want this? But I don't think, I mean, Tyra's reflected. I've seen a few interviews when she's kind of talked back at, some of the things that they did in the early episodes. There was one interview very recently that she talked on, I think it was on Instagram Live with, I think they're probably two podcasters, not well, we will interview her one day.
Exactly.
But she said, look, in the first season, we even had we measured every girl and we weighed them. And she said, I look back and think, what the hell were we doing? But at the time, that was normal. And to be fair, when I watched it, I just thought, yes, that is what a model is. You can't be any other. But she did so much, didn't she?
Yeah.
To kind of promote body positivity. There were actually trans
contestant Isis, yes, unfortunately named Isis.
I did
Every time they'd say ISIS, and you'd be like, oh, what?
And I was like, oh, no,
what terrorist organisation? Oops.
But she was so good at kind of promoting things before they were a trend.
Yes.
And everyone in there was, a lot of men were gay, and everyone was okay. It was accepted, and it was not even accepted. It was really celebrated.
It was just part of it. It was it wasn't even commented on. It was just there.
It is what it is,
isn't it? And I think that was why the show is so hugely popular with the LGBTQI. But it was also as well. You're so right. She was doing the petite cycle. She did the plus size cycle. She had there's so much more that. But at the same time, this is, I think it comes down to that whole kind of love-hate thing that we have with Tyra.
Yeah.
So in the sense that, yes, you're right. There's so many positives that we learned from the show, and and at that time, no one was having those conversations. And to be fair, Tyra did do a lot of the work in the mainstream in that space to kind of get us to moving towards the direction we're moving in now, where we have representation on screen. Where back in the day we couldn't have thought of something even though there was Queer Eye, there was 5 white guys, but now Queer Eye is a lot more representative than it was before.
Yeah,
and I think same with Top Model as well. As we went along, models became more representative. Because in America, at first it was they were all American girls.
Yeah, they were.
And it was very stark as well. It was almost
there were a few token coloured girls, black girls,
POCs exactly. Black girls. And that was the thing. It was either you were either this blonde beauty from the South, or you were a black girl from the Bronx, or do you know what I mean? They fit into various tropes and stereotypes, and because of that, I think we then kind of moved. A&TM slowly moved away from that and tried to take it away from that. It's well, look, this is what a model to be. This is what a model can be. And, but then at the same time, Tyra would kind of shoot herself in the foot, because on the one hand she'd be Kate Moss is only 5'7", then she'd chuck someone out for being 5'6". Yeah.
But the thing is, was it about? I feel she would give critique that was look, you can still maybe model through your limitations, maybe in terms of your height, as long as you photograph tall, keep your neck. And the other thing, the neck.
the neck. Oh my god, the neck monster.
I thought all these things that she would teach you, maybe with a forehead. She said, you've got a big forehead, don't lean forward, lean back, all these different things. But I feel her intention, I do, but I know it sounds quite naive. I do feel her intentions were good to create something that was going to, promote body positivity or diversity and help people become famous as models. But I think she also knew, look, this is a really tough industry. I want to kind of showcase the shady side of it, but in a funny way. I think that sometimes it felt like hazing when I would watch some of the challenges. But I loved that. It was funny, and I know it was at their expense, but guess what? They signed up for it, and they know it's a reality TV show. Well,
this is the thing. That you've nailed it on the head. That is reality TV at that time. You'd basically sit with a producer beforehand and say, look, I don't want to be naked in front of anyone. I don't like
and
heights.
They will definitely make sure that they put you in those situations to exploit you.
Exactly. So you're going to be naked in front of loads of, I'm a Christian girl. I don't believe in sex before marriage. I don't believe in being naked in public. What are you going to do? You're going to have to do a naked shoot with grown men pointing cameras at you. I'm scared of heights. Right, you're going to have to pose on top of a building or run to the top of the... You know what I mean? So it was a very... And that is not just...
But she'd call those people out. I just saw a clip recently of there was one woman that was like, oh, I don't want to be naked. I'm not doing a naked shoot. And then Tyra was like, you say you didn't want to do this naked shoot, but then when I came behind the scenes, I saw you behind the curtain flash your boobs and jiggle them, and they were up, down, left, right, and the girl
that happened in Canada's Next Top Model as well.
It's a regular. But the thing is, it's funny, isn't it? Because I think she was also teaching the girls, look, I know that you've got certain principles and morals. Don't just do it for the camera. Have some integrity. Is it you or isn't it you? And what is the reason why you're here? Don't do things for face. And I like that. She tried to break all that down.
She did. And I think the other thing that we have to praise Top Model on is it was so slickly edited and produced. They had a small budget and they didn't have much to kind of go on. But they made sure every frame counted.
Because I think she adopts a model of look, look, I'm taking a photo and I want to make sure we make the most of the film. Because I used to think, who cares? Like, it doesn't matter if there's loads of bad photos. It matters because that's someone's time spent on photos that are useless. So she's doing the same thing. She's going through the show thinking, look, what is going to make the most impact in this show? And I like that principle, and I feel like we kind of do that in our lives
absolutely.
as well.
Like, it's kind of like when she went to the Japan shoot. And do you remember when she showed the girls, like, they had to do something for Samsung with the flip phone? And then she showed them with the kimono, like, they were just posing with the kimono on. And she's like, no, look, you can take it off, you can throw it around, and you can move it. But
think outside the box.
Then, and also, what was really smart as well in one way about the show is like she would tell you what you needed to know, but she wouldn't tell you directly. And that is very much like the real world, where someone will tell you. So, for example, if you get a client who gives you a brief and says, "I want this, this, and this," they're not exactly going to say what they want. But they expect you to come up with the finished product, so you have to process it and be the creative. Exactly, and I think that kind of picking up those clues, being aware, being in the moment, and again, it comes down to wanting it. You had to really, girl, you had to want it. Like,
you need
seriously,
to be desperate for it, and they definitely tried to pull that out of people. And occasionally, you would see a couple of contestants that would say, "I don't really want to do this." Yeah, they're like, "Well, that is going to definitely get shown in the judge panel. They're going to bring you down."
So, do you think adding male models into the mix was a good idea?
You didn't need to finish that off. That was one of the best moves, because for ages I kept thinking, "Oh, I wonder what she would critique men. How would she kind of suggest they do things?" And I also thought men aren't really that big as supermodels, are they? They don't really have that kind of concept. And I just thought, I want to see some eye candy, because occasionally they would throw a man in, wouldn't they, with the girls? And I used to be like, showcase him a little bit more, because he was just there to facilitate the girl being, the center of attention. But Niall
DeMarco, and we have to give a shout out to Niall. He he produced a show called Deaf U, which is about a university.
I didn't know it was
in the US.
Okay,
and it's really good show. Like, I've seen a couple of episodes. I need to finish it actually, and really, really enjoyed it. It's on Netflix.
He's a great role model, isn't he?
Really,
it would have been much more difficult for him, I imagine, getting feedback from the director and being in the moment, trying to understand the instructions when you're more limited in terms of your senses.
Absolutely, and I think he had even though he had an interpreter and that. Like, do you remember, like, when he was in the house, he was left out of a lot of conversation. I think it was really good, because I think that is a barrier that people don't often talk about, being, the able-bodied, and that is something. It's a conversation, and I think in that respect, you're so right that Tyra she did try to broach these conversations, and like, I think she was a bit clumsy in the way she did it.
I can't remember it now, but then
well, I just mean just in general. So, like, when she would have like any sort of, when she tried to break or address any sort of taboo, whatever it was at that time in society. I think the way she came at it was a bit kind of clunky.
It's hard, isn't it? Because when you're the pioneer, it's almost like, look, it's hard to kind of do it perfectly, and other people will learn from your mistakes, hopefully. But we should obviously applaud her for doing it. But, yeah, exactly. We will definitely tear her down as well. We're not doing it properly.
But in summary, adding male models to the mix, a good idea. Yes.
Hell yeah.
One picture in our hands, and it's a yes.
Brilliant. So do you know, we got plenty more to say about ANTM. So in true ANTM style, we're going to have a two-parter.
Yes.
Not one of those annoying filler episodes where you see all that unseen footage.
That we was so disappointing. And we've seen most of it already anyway. All it was like someone doing a poo or falling over or something.
Oh my God. It would really catch you off guard. I'd be like really excited, got my snacks ready. And I was like, wait, I've seen this.
Or like, it'd be the one just before the final. So then when you downloaded it and you're like, oh, this is the unseen one.
Man. What? Yeah, and nobody wants that, but we've got more juicy topics, including why Aura was the worst host ever, and the ANTM drag race in relationship, oh my god, and then Bhushan quizzes Sunny on his knowledge.
That's right. So anyway, just before we go, I just want to remind people that you can contact us on our so if you have anything today you want to talk about, or if you want to kind of pick up on anything we've discussed, we would love to hear from you. So you can hear from us on
I don't think you can test me. Do you want to
test me? Okay. So on Facebook and Instagram, we are
The Podcast Is Mine.
And then on Instagram, on Twitter,
Podcast Is Mine. Yes.
And then on TikTok,
The Podcast Is Mine.
Well done. And then what's our email address?
It's thepodcastismine at gmail.com.
Someone did his homework.
Yeah, I'm ready for that challenge.
Absolutely. And then finally, the podcast is mine.